Hello, I am the Lady Miss Vagina Jenkins, and it is time for queer astrology. So this is going to be a story time kind of video. I want to talk about profection years, specifically 4th, 8th, and 12th house profection years. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I promise it's okay. It's okay. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, one of the timing techniques that astrologers will use to help you understand what could be the energy of any given time period for you is the technique of profection years. It's a Hellenistic or traditional astrology technique, and the theory goes that basically each year of your life is devoted to the issues and themes of one of the 12 houses, and that it would continue to cycle, right? So that when you were born, you would be in a first house year, and so those themes would be relevant. Themes around self-identity, who you are in the world, how you navigate the world. Or for example, I am 46, and so I'm in my 11th house profection year, which is supposed to be devoted more to your friend groups or social groups that you belong to as a result of your reputation or your career. Me being in my 11th house year is one of the reasons why I wanted to start making YouTube videos about astrology, because I wanted to connect with other astrology enthusiasts and astrology learners and astrologers. I just wanted to make community around my autistic special interest in astrology. So that's the concept behind profection years. Some profection years are supposed to be more challenging than others, I'll say. And some profection years are supposed to be more joyful or growth, healing oriented than others. Now, I don't put too much stock into this. You know, I'm definitely an astrologer who believes more that we determine our own fate, that our own actions and attitudes sort of determine our way in the world. But I do very much think that like astrology is a tool that can help guide us. And so yeah, I want to know what profection year I am in and what themes might be come up and what themes might come up and what I might focus my energy on for the year. I ultimately though determine how my year goes. Anywho, let's talk about challenging profection years. The astrologers be saying that the 4th house, 8th house, and 12th house profection years can be years of loss. And by loss, I mean a sort of winnowing, a sort of releasing. I think that loss can feel harmful or traumatic when we are attached, and maybe overly attached, to certain things, ways of being, ideas, people, places, things, you know, that kind of thing. The word releasing could be a different way of framing these challenging profection years. So yeah, I just wanted to do a short video, a short series of videos sharing what my experience of the 4th, 8th, and 12th house profection years has been, just to talk about the difference between loss and releasing, and to maybe alleviate any worry or anxiety folks might have as they are going into their 4th, 8th, or 12th house profection years. So let's get into it. Story time. So we know that all of the houses build on each other, right? The thing about the 4th, 8th, and 12th house profection years is that, like, if you are losing or releasing, you might lose or release things related to the themes of that house, 4th house themes, 8th house themes, 12th house themes, or you might lose or release things related to the previous houses before that. So for example, in a 4th house year, you might release some things associated with the 1st house, your identity, your 2nd house, the way that you earn money and your values, the 3rd house, your communication style, your siblings, that kind of thing, right? This is the story of my 4th house year. The 4th house is devoted to experiences of home, how you do home, your actual physical living space, your ancestors, your family of origin, that kind of thing. In my 4th house year, I lost my housing in a traumatic way. So basically, what happened was, I was living in one of those cooperative houses in North Oakland with a group of white folks called the Darlingtons. These are like the best, most liberal white folks that you can be in community with, right? At the time, right? They are regularly going to anti-racism trainings. The house is cooperatively run. You know, everybody pays a sort of different amount of rent, depending on their income. There are chores, and so it feels like a communal running of the house. There's shared food. There's a garden that is tended to by all of the residents, but also available and open to the community. In very many ways, it was what I had idealized for so long. But then there are also the personalities involved, and also what people bring to the table, and people bring to the table their context. So like I said, it was mostly white folks and me. And yeah, the context that they brought to the table, even though they were trying their hardest to work on their anti-racism, was a context of being raised in white supremacy. I also noticed that, like, a lot of the caretaking of feelings labor, as well as the caretaking of the house labor, was put on me, and also not noticed or valued. Yeah, even though it was a cooperative, you know, under capitalism, you know, I don't think that 6 to 8 people can own a house. And so there was one owner of the house, and I made the mistake of befriending that person. And you know, our friendship was fine to, you know, neutral to good for, you know, most of the 3 years that I lived in that house. But there just became a time where she was having a mental health crisis. She'd taken herself off of her bipolar meds, and she needed a lot more emotional support and a lot more mental health support and a lot more support than I could offer. And I told her that. And it did not go well. It got interpreted as, you don't want to be my friend anymore. Why don't you want to be my friend? Why don't you want to take care of me in the way that you have in the past? It just turned into a whole thing. In terms of the astrology of it all and what felt like loss, I definitely lost my housing, so 4th house issues, right? They were doing, because it was a cooperative house, it felt like something like building my own queer family, and I lost that in addition to losing my actual physical housing. And then 3rd, 2nd, and 1st house issues, I definitely lost the ability to trust and communicate authentically with white folks after that. I had done so much work about, like, communicating boldly and truthfully and standing in my power. And then I don't know, it was just one of those experiences that made it very, very clear to me that, like, yes, you should stand in your power, and also white supremacy is a huge, powerful entity. And sometimes it makes more sense to go around and move around, you know? In terms of second house loss experiences, it was definitely the time in my life where, a time in my life where I had very little financial wherewithal to make things shake. And I definitely feel like I compromised my values in living in that house, you know, not being able to speak up authentically. And then in terms of first house identity sorts of things, yeah, that experience definitely shifted my identity. I think I was a person who was invested in being colorblind, and I don't see color. And now I feel like a person who is much more clear about the realities of power dynamics as it pertains to race in America and, dare say, the world. But I will say this, in terms of releasing instead of loss, I released my attachment to providing emotional care and acting as a mammy for white women. I released some of the ideas that I had about how community is made and how community should look and who to prioritize in community. And in terms of major identity shifts, I absolutely released a lot of the internalized anti-Blackness that I was holding on to because I was prioritizing relationships with white folks who were still invested in white supremacy. After my fourth house year, I was able to find housing, and it turns out a better housing situation than I had ever even imagined was possible for me. I currently live in a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Oakland that is, you know, relatively affordable. It's a lower rate than most of my neighbors pay, though it is a little bit hard for me to achieve sometimes. So I'm constantly fundraising. Plug my Patreon here if you would like to join my Patreon or buy me a coffee blogs. Those are my primary ways of earning income, is writing about art and astrology. I actually feel like I can be unmasked at home now in a way that I was not able to the entire time living there. I have a life now where I prioritize relationships with other Black people and other autistic people. Because I've done so much work to interrogate and divest from my own internalized anti-Blackness, I feel in a much more emotionally and mentally healthier place than I've ever been. Well, yeah, that is the story of what I lost or released and what I gained as a result of my fourth house year. And yeah, I just wanted to share it because I think that it's really important to understand that loss could be reframed as a releasing, a winnowing away of things that no longer serve us. And then what does it mean to make room in our lives, to divest from the things that no longer serve us? And then how does that make room in our lives for the things that do serve us? So yeah, loss or releasing to make way for things that are better. That could be a story of challenging Profection House years. Right, that is the video. That is what I have to share. And as always, thank you for watching, and thank you for making time for queer astrology.